everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be weighing the pros and cons of all the different roles offered in the Disney College program. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking to you about what I considered the pros and the cons of the different roles in the Disney College program, because I know that application season for fall 2019 is just about to begin, and honestly, the roles and choosing which roles were right for me was one of the hardest parts of the application, because while it is easy to want to go in and say, I'm open for everything, I can do every job, that's not always true. Like, while it would be great to be able to do every job when it is an internship where you're working 40-50 hours a week, you kind of want to make sure that it's something that you can actually do, even if it might hurt your application a little bit. So one of the good things about the Disney College program is that it does let you rank your role preferences from high interest to moderate, low, and no interest. So you could rank the roles that you are interested in and be considered for all of them. And you could also just not be considered for a role if you're not that interested in it. And don't be afraid to utilize the no interest feature, because while you may think it hurts your application, ultimately it just creates an honest application and it will keep you from being stuck in a role that might not be right for you. And the last thing you would want is to be in a role that you might not be properly trained for. Like, say like you're a lifeguard or a Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and you don't have experience in either of those things, then you're at increased risk of getting termed. Or even a job that may have high volume but a lot of low interest, like housekeeping or custodial. They're always looking for people to fill those jobs, but I think a lot of people underestimate the requirements for those jobs, so a lot of people also end up terming or self-terming from those roles as well. So these are different things to consider. So I'm going to start by saying the roles that I put as high interest and the reasons why I put them as high interest. So I put 5 things as high interest. I put attractions, bell services, convention guide, front desk, and vacation planner. Now, a lot of these roles ended up high interest because, like I said in my previous video, I wasn't really open in the roles that I would do because it was supposed to be a test application for me. If you want to hear more about that, go to my previous video. But anyway, so the main roles that I put down were the ones that I knew I could do and the ones that seemed to correlate with my education and what I'm studying in school. So attractions I put as high interest because it's literally making the magic happen. Probably one of the coolest jobs that can be done in the Disney College program. Even if you get put in stroller patrol or parking, you still get a lot of guest interactions and you still get to make sure that the show runs smoothly. So you get to be hands-on with everything that goes on. So I thought it was really magical. You have a higher chance, maybe full chance, of working inside the parks, which is really cool. You get to work on themed events or themed attractions, like just get to live around a theme. That seems really cool. And you get to have a lot of interactions with the guests. Cons that I had for attractions is that you are often responsible for guest safety, even if it is parking or strollers, making sure things are going okay, or you're running a ride and making sure that that goes smoothly. It's just you have a lot of responsibilities in this role, so I don't think that's to be overlooked. You could have potentially hostile interactions with guests. Say they can't find what they're looking for the right way, their fast passes aren't working, or they can't get onto the ride at the right time that they had wanted. You just might have to have a lot of more situations to diffuse than other roles. And a con that I had is that you're likely working outdoors in the Florida heat, where I'm not against that, but for a lot of people that might be an issue, especially if you are very sensitive to heat. Then you might want to consider the roles that are more indoors, because heat stroke is real. It happens a lot. I've seen it happen in Disney World. I've seen it happen in other places. You need to be very careful with the Florida sun. And a con that I put is that you could potentially be placed in like parking or stroller patrol, just like not as glamorous of jobs. Like there are so many things that fall under the umbrella of attractions that you're not going to be so sure what exactly you're getting into until you arrive. Next, I put bell services. Basically because I was interested in every role that pertained to a hotel, because I really wanted to get that experience and I felt like it aligned with my studies. So I liked it because you get guest interactions, you're working at the resorts, and from what I found online, they tend to work more regular hours. Downsides is that there is heavy lifting. You could have hostile interactions with guests, or guests might be rude to you, and you're probably never working in the parks. So that's one downside. If you want to be indoors most of the day, Bell Services is probably good for you, but if you really want to work in the parks, then stay away from resort-focused roles. Convention guide. So I liked convention guide because a lot of my work experience has been in event planning, and Epcot is my favorite park. I love the events like Festival of the Arts, Flower Garden, Food and Wine. So I was very eager to work in that role, even though I know that it's very limited. I think there are a lot of diverse tasks involved with it. A con is that there's not a lot of information available for it. There aren't a lot of CPs that get put in this role, and the schedule tends to be really inconsistent. And then I put front desk. Again, I put it high interest because it's good if you want to work in hospitality, you want to work in a hotel. It gives you that experience. You get to assist them with their itineraries. You do get a lot of guest interactions. You tend to start the magic of their vacation, so you set the tone for how their vacation is going to be once they check in, and that's pretty cool. And you get to work in the resorts. If, say, you don't want to be working all day in the Florida heat, this is a good role for you. A downside is that I heard that a lot of CPs at front desk get stuck on late night shifts because hotels are always open, guests are always checking in. So even if you're working late at night, odds are it's not going to be a dead shift. There will be people coming in. You are never going to be working in the parks, and you could have potentially hostile interactions with guests, or they might have a temper with you just because if their room does not come up the way that they had planned, or there were mischarges on their room. Obviously this might be something that your leader will step in and deal with, but if they approach you about it, then you're involved in it. And then last, for high interest, I put vacation planner. So I put vacation planner as high interest because to me it seemed like the most normal job from what I found online. There are a lot of daytime working hours. There's room to improve. You get to create magic, you help guests with their itineraries, and you could be stationed at just about any park at any time, any place. It just seems like there's a lot of diversity in it, even though there's not much information available on it. A downside is that there are few CPs, and there are requirements on sales quotas and things like that, and you are handling money. So if that's something that you don't think you're too great with, then don't consider this role. And you also are likely working outdoors a lot of the day. Now, moderate interest, I put 6 things as moderate interest: bus greeter, character attendant, merchandise, photo pass, quick service food and beverage, and seater. Bus greeter, there's not much information available on this role, but from what I found, you get a lot of guest interactions and you get to use a radio to communicate with the buses and other things. It just seems like it might be a very mellow kind of role, but don't get me wrong, there's definitely a lot of work involved too. And the cons that I found for it is that you could have a lot of hostile interactions with guests because you're going to often be dealing with them at the end of their day. So they might be very exhausted, they might be hot, their kids may be cranky, and you're just going to be a part of that. And you're almost always working outdoors. Character attendant, I put as moderate interest. I think it's just a really cool job. You're making the magic happen. You get to give lifelong memories to families, kids, everything. Like, it's one of the probably like top 3 coolest jobs in Disney World. And you definitely get to work in a park. You get to have a lot of guest interactions, except you may end up in like one of those character events or like restaurants at the resorts. But most likely you're going to be working in the parks, which is really cool. The downsides is that there's so much responsibility to maintaining the magic that it's very likely that if you slip up, you could ruin somebody's experience. You have to deal with a lot of audience control, a lot of hostile interactions. I think in my interview, just about everybody that I know that interviewed and put down character attendant had the question of what would you do if a guest was upset with A, B, C situation. So like it seems like more often than not you're going to end up experiencing some adult being upset with you or some child having a little bit of a temper, and you are going to be working outdoors. So that's also another downside. Merchandise, I don't have anything against, but I knew it was a very high volume role and I just wanted to be considered for the 5 top roles first. So I think merchandise is cool because you can make the magic happen. In my interview, I asked the woman if she had done the college program and if she had ever made magic, and she said that her best memory was when she was working in merchandise and all this kid wanted was a very certain like plush toy, and they went to every store throughout the entire day. They couldn't find it, and it was their last day in the parks, and she spent hours going through inventory, reaching out to every other store, every resort, and making sure that that kid had that toy before they left. And I think that's obviously an extreme example of making the magic happen, but often when a guest comes up to you and they ask for a certain thing, you never know how important that is for them. So I think that's really cool. Along with that, you get a lot of guest interactions, and there's the possibility to work in parks and resorts. So if you want to pick up shifts, there's a good chance that you could do it just about anywhere. The downside is that you could also have a day where there's no guest interaction. If you get put stocking shelves or doing inventory, you just might have days that are not as great as others. You could be put on stroller duty, or you could be put in like other places that might not be great. You could be put at stands and then stuck outside all day, or you could again be stuck like stocking or working inventory. I think I already said that. PhotoPass, I mentioned this in my last video. I don't understand why I put PhotoPass as any interest, because it's not a bad job. I'm a bad photographer. I would probably have been termed. I probably would have ruined people's vacations. I cannot take great photos. Anybody that I've ever tried taking a photo for would probably attest to this. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me and my eyes that I can't take great photos. But for whatever reason, when I was filling out my application, I was like, oh, this is a job I can do. No, you probably can't. I would think long and hard about this one, because you might be one of those people that takes great pictures. You might be a photographer. You might take great pictures on your phone, and those are all great things to be able to do. But also a lot of people that think they're good at it just might not be good at it. So I would just say think about it a lot before you start. So I would say that the benefits of this is that you could work in many locations. A lot of the parks, the resorts, you get a lot of diversity in where you are, and often you're going to find the best Insta spots, and you could probably work with other CPs and help them with their photo shoots. So I just think that's a good way to get to make friends. Downsides is that you're lugging around camera equipment all day, you're probably working outdoors, or you're only working in a very stationary spot for the day if you're put at a certain character meet spot. A downside is that likely you have to approach the guests and ask them if they want a picture, and you just have to be really good at interacting with other people for that. And again, downside, you're likely working outdoors, and I heard that they do have quotas that they're supposed to meet, so I just know for some people that might be overwhelming. Now, quick service food and beverage, I put as moderate interest because I do have experience in food service at a local chain restaurant near me. So a benefit is that you could work in parks or resorts, which means if you're looking to get in a lot of hours and make a lot of money, you can pick up at many places and get a lot of work in. Excuse me. There are many CPs in this role, so it's likely that you could find friends that are in the same experience that you are, or looking for similar experiences. So I saw online that a lot of people do make friends with the people in their location. So it's just nice to have a role where there are a lot of other CPs. And again, you have the option for more hours because you can pick up at a lot of places. It's easy to switch shifts with other people because there are a lot of people in this role. So that's good. And I think that even though it might not seem magical, you kind of get to learn the secrets of Disney food, which I think is actually pretty unique, and I think that's kind of cool. Or even if, say, you're put into the kitchen, that's not something a lot of people get to see. So I think that's also pretty magical, that's something that you'll know, but not a lot of other people do. The cons are that you could be working outdoors. You could have to work at like a turkey leg stand or do a popcorn run. in the middle of the heat, and I've heard people say that that's not very fun. Some people don't think that there's a lot of magic in it. I think it's just what you make of it, but at the surface it doesn't have a lot of magic in it. And depending on where you are, you could have very little guest interactions, or it could really just be very much like a script, like, hi, what's your order, what can I help you with, things like that. Not much of like a personal interaction. And then I also put Cedar because, again, you could work in parks or resorts. You get to work at some of the nicer restaurants, which is kind of cool. You do get a lot of guest interactions while they're waiting or just getting to talk with them. You might also get to make a little bit of magic happen, not directly, but if people are having issues with their reservation, you might be able to do something that'll help them through that situation. And also, it doesn't seem like a very physically demanding role. While you might be on your feet a lot and maybe you're going to have to bus. I'm not too sure what this role consists of because there's not a lot on it online. But I've been a hostess at a restaurant before, the local chain restaurant near me. And it's not that physically demanding of a role where you could get a lot of hours in and probably not feel too strained. Downside is that it is repetitive. It's pretty simple work, and you're probably going to be working with a lot of the same people all the time. So it just might, like, it's going to be a very weird job, so it just might not be the experience that you're looking for. Low interest, I put costuming operations and monorail. Costuming I put as low interest because I do have a background in fashion, so I knew that it was something that I would understand. And it seems like a pretty cool job to have to be in charge of all the different costumes for the different roles and the characters. And it seems like you get to learn a lot of the small Disney secrets there. But you are working, and another benefit or a con is that you get to work indoors. So if the heat isn't for you, then this is a role that you might want to consider. But if you do want to have guest interactions, this isn't great for you. The downsides is that you will have to handle dirty laundry at some point. You might have to do fittings for people or handle people when they're slightly exposed, so that might not be the optimal condition. And also, like I said, not a lot of guest interactions, but you might have a lot of chances to interact with the other people at your station. And then monorail, I don't know why I put it on as any interest because I don't really understand what this role consists of. I'm assuming that it's being like a bus greeter, but on the monorail. I'm not too sure. But I thought it was cool because it seems like you could work indoors and outdoors at them. You get to interact with the guests a lot, and you get to see a lot of places in a day. You could go to different parks, different resorts. You could work different routes, and that just seemed kind of cool to me. But I didn't understand that much about it, so I didn't want to seem too eager to do the job. Downsides is that you probably aren't going to be stopped in the parks for long. Like, you don't get to work in a consistent location, so that might bother a lot of people. And also, like, it doesn't seem like there's too much magic going on in that role. So if that's something that you're really looking forward to, this might not be the job for you. And now the jobs that I put as no interest. I didn't put these as no interest because they seem like bad roles. I put them as no interest because they didn't seem like roles I could do. And with these roles specifically, I feel like it's important to be somebody that's open to doing that work and capable of doing that work, because it just seems like a very sensitive situation for a lot of them. So the first one was Bippity Boppity Boutique. I can't do makeup, and I'm not the best at interacting with kids, so having to put makeup on a child, I wouldn't be able to do it. I have a lot of respect for the people that can manage in this role, especially children that might not be having the best day, or who knows, they might not like the way that the makeup comes out, because kids are just very temperamental. So I'm not the best person to deal with that, and I knew I wouldn't be able to, so I didn't put any interest in that role. Character performer is the coolest role in Disney World. It is. You're responsible for all the magic. You get to make all the kids happy. Maybe you get to perform in a parade or whatever. You get to be friends with the coolest people that I know. And character performer seems great, but for me, at least this time, because I got it on accident, if you would like to watch my last video to find out how, I wasn't so committed to going to an audition. And I do have a background in musical theater, but I wouldn't say I'm an actor or a dancer by any means. So it was something where if I extend or if I try the college program again, I might put caution to the wind and try to audition and see what I get. But it wasn't something that I was too eager for this time around. I figured I'd see what came out of it. Downsides is that you might have to be in a heavy costume in the Florida heat, maybe for the whole summer. If you're sensitive to heat, that's definitely not for you. If you're a person that doesn't like to sweat too much, again, that's not for you. And a downside is that should you mess up, that's probably the greatest magic killer for a child or a family on vacation. So it's just something to be aware of, like you have to be on your role constantly when you're there. And then again, my downsides was like if you don't really have a background in theater or dance, you might not have a good grasp on the movements necessary to properly work in this role, so you might just struggle a little bit with that. Children's activities, I put it as no interest because it seemed like it was a very, very remote role. Again, like I said before, I'm not the best with kids. I can interact with them fine, but if I'm solely responsible for them, I wouldn't be too comfortable with that, especially kids that I don't know. So I put no interest in it because I'm not good at dealing with the kids or the parents, and that's basically it. But a good benefit is that you probably get to interact with the same kids a few times in their trip. So if you want to get consistent interactions, this is a way too. But also, you might have to deal with frustrated parents, you might have to deal with tantrums, and there might not be that much magic in this role, so those are things to consider. Custodial, I think it's a great role because a lot of people say that you get free movement at whatever location you're put. You could pick up at just about anywhere, and there's a lot of high volume, so there's a good chance that you could be accepted for this role if you put it as a high interest. However, I'm a very queasy person. I'm not good at cleaning up messes from other people. If it's dirt or like paper, it's fine. But everything I saw said that at some point you will have to clean up vomit or some other things from humans. And I can't do that. I just can't do it. I have a lot of respect for the people that can. I'm not one of those people. And a downside also is that I heard that it's the most term job because I feel like a lot of people underestimate the expectations of it. So if you are going to go in and put it as high interest, make sure you're aware of what you're getting yourself into. House person, I put as no interest, also for the same reason as custodial, is that I'm likely going to have to clean up something gross from a human, and I'm not good with that. And like, I'm just not good with that. And I also heard that a lot of people self-term because it's another job that is different than expectations. So if you're going to put this role down, I would recommend looking more into it and making sure that it's something that you can handle. Lifeguard, it's a very cool job. It has a lot of high need. If you can be a lifeguard, I highly recommend going to be a lifeguard because it seems really cool. But I can barely swim. There's no way I'm saving somebody else's life at a pool. That would just be very irresponsible and maybe even illegal of me to put myself down for this job knowing that I cannot do it. So I put no interest in it. I wish I could. I cannot. Recreational activities, I put as no interest just because I didn't really know anything about it. And like I said, I got into the program on accident. So I wasn't really going to get myself involved with something that I wasn't certain I was going to want to do and enjoy. Watercraft, no, I actually think this one could have been cool. I think I misread it a lot. And it seems like you get to drive a boat around. Maybe you get to do the same thing as like monorail or bus greeter. But like, it seems pretty cool to get to work with boats all day and work in the lagoons. You typically get a nice view of the parks. You probably get to work with the same guests repeatedly because they're staying at certain resorts. But again, you're probably not working inside the parks, you're probably not making a lot of magic, and you're going to be sitting outside on the water on a boat in the Florida heat. So if that's something that you don't want to be constantly outside and you're not sure how you can do it, then I wouldn't put it down. Okay, so that's just about every role that the Walt Disney World Disney College program has to offer. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please comment down below, and if you would want to keep track of all my future videos, hit that bell and put your notifications on. If you have any recommendations or suggestions for future videos, feel free to comment, or you could find me on Instagram at SammyGirl_aroundtheworld, and you could message me there or comment on it, and I hope to provide a lot of content. I think in exactly a week I'm on my flight down to Orlando, so you're going to be getting a lot of stuff from me very soon. Thank you all for tuning in. Bye.